Hey, church. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're staying healthy. I wanted to pick up where I left off out there when it started hailing on me with the character of Ruben. And if you remember right, as we looked in Genesis at his character, around 37, 39 chapter in Genesis, his Jacob summarized his son Reuben as comparing him to water, because when he was water had no shape of its own, and Reuben was a guy that, although had great intentions, he was a little bit wishy-washy, if you might say. He always kind of went with the crowd and wouldn't stand against anything or anybody. So it kind of went with the flow of things, for another water term. But let's look at some of his strengths and maybe a few of his accomplishments. And I left by leaving you when it started hailing in that video I did for you last time on this. I left off asking you the question of how consistent are you with your public and private lives? Are you the same person out here that you are in here, in your home? I think that's kind of a gifting that some people have and some people don't, because you ever walk into a church and you've seen this individual out and about and around town in the business community, and you know who they are, what they're like, and maybe a little flamboyant and colorful, but you see them at church and they've got maybe a different look, and they have a different speech, talk a little differently, walk a little differently, act a little differently. And I find it interesting because we do tend to, as we come into the presence, we become something different. I believe God is calling us to not just walk that way when we step into church as we know it, but as we step into every holy place. Because holy place is where we meet Him, when we're in the presence of Him. And to be steadfast and be who we are here and who we are here, whether we're limited or not, express that, because that realism and that transparency is what God is going to work with and use for His kingdom. Okay? So some of his strengths were, he saved Joseph's life by by talking the other brothers out of murder, right? So, hey, there was a strength. He didn't necessarily, at that point, go with the flow, did he? He said, hey, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in this hole. Let's, let somebody else find him. Let's pretend. But he didn't still stand up for what he wanted to stand up for, I believe, which was to not throw him in a hole, not kill him, his brother. So another thing was, he showed intense love for his father by offering his own sons as a guarantee that Benjamin's life would be safe. But, weaknesses sometimes overrule. He gave in quickly to peer pressure. It's one weakness. Another one was, he did not directly protect Joseph from his brothers, although as oldest son, he had the authority to do that. And he did some other things that were definitely not necessarily worth mentioning, but as we look at that describes us. We have our weaknesses, we've made our mistakes. We have our strengths, we have our accomplishments. We have the ebbs and flows of life. But are you going to continue to stay in your weaknesses and your mistakes? Or are you going to allow those to make you into frozen water? Something that stands fast, stands firm, takes shape. A great lesson from his life is that no matter what, public and private integrity must be the same, or one will destroy the other. There's a key word that I've dealt with really kind of heavily, integrity being that word, over this last week. And we're going to talk about that. I think that's probably, I think a leading, I'm going to share that, maybe do that to be our next week's lesson on integrity and what is God's integrity? And how does that reflect us in our life? I'm going to leave you with this. Ruben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power, turbulent as the waters. Waters are powerful. You will no longer excel, for you went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and you defiled it. You see, one of his weaknesses was women. He slept with one of his father's concubines. And we find in Genesis 49:3 that story. But I read that and I end with that the first part, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Those are some beautiful attributes, beautiful things that I believe I want to speak into you, not the second part, because we all have the weaknesses, but what are your strengths? Turn to yourself today, look, write them down, find 3 strengths, and put them on a sticky note on your mirror, and focus on that for a while. Okay? Anyways, love you guys. Let Ruben inspire you, and we will talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Love you.